One of the most popular questions I get is, how on earth do I get the grade when I'm writing persuasively? In AQA, that is question 5 of paper 2. And I could give you a really long video about all the persuasive techniques that you need, but that might intimidate you, and also it would take a while, and we're revising quickly here. So yes, use as many techniques as you can, but don't stress about having a million techniques. They will come naturally if you practice them one at a time. Which ones are associated with top grades? Well, this might surprise you. In at number 1 is the anecdote, the little story, made up or true, that illustrates your point of view. If you read top newspaper articles, you'll find they nearly always start with that anecdote. At number 2, the most popular persuasive technique of all time, going back to the ancient Greeks who invented persuasive writing with rhetoric, is repetition. Unbelievably, they had 15 words for repetition, 15 different kinds. You don't need to learn those 15 different kinds. You just need to say to yourself, I need to find lots of different ways of repeating at the beginning of sentences, at the end of sentences, repeating the same sentence structure at the beginning of a paragraph and at the beginning of the next paragraph. It doesn't matter. However you want to do it, just use lots of repetition. Practice repeating language and ideas to be persuasive. At number 3, we have rhetorical questions, because hey, that's what the Greeks called it. They loved a bit of rhetoric and they loved a good question. Now, what typically happens is students put 1 in, maybe 2, but top writers really go for it. They sprinkle it in like seasoning in a salad. They want loads of rhetorical questions. Now, I'm not talking 20, and I'm probably not talking 10, although you could do 10, but you want to go overboard, certainly in your revision, practicing using rhetorical questions. These also give your writing a rhythm, and so does the repetition, where you're just going bam and bam and bam and bam, or something less aggressive, where you're just smiting your opponents with the brilliance of your arguments. So those are top. Now we have personification, metaphor, and simile. As long as you're using one or perhaps some of those, you will be devastating your reader with perfect pictures of what you want, or perfect pictures of what you're trying to avoid. And so we link those together by calling them imagery. Practice using imagery to create these little pictures. Imagine them as photographs that you're going to use as evidence. Bosh! Look at that. This shows how marvellous my idea is. Double bosh! Look at that. That shows how terrible your idea is. Easily done. And the brilliance and the terrible link us to the next most successful technique, which is emotive language. The more emotion you can bring, the higher your grade. But beware, you have an adult audience. This isn't a your mum comedy where you're insulting people. It's not about insult. It's about showing what is wrong. You can, and this is a more advanced technique, so only do this if you have practiced it, you can use satire. In a satire, you take a humorous perspective on something in order to show how ridiculous it is. Not stupid, you're not insulting people, but you are taking it a further step so that you can show the idea itself, which might sound reasonable, the more you take it on will become increasingly ridiculous. Only do that If you are confident, you don't have to do it. Even if you are confident, I find, because you might have noticed I'm a boy, that boys really like doing that. And I give you permission, but more importantly, the grade 9 answers I read often use satire. And so the examiner also gives you permission. Okay, what other things can I rely on that are simple, that have nothing to do with persuasive writing techniques? This. You don't have to get the grade through persuasive writing techniques. You can get it another way through the structure of your argument. And so step number 1, have an argument. So instead of thinking, how am I going to make my ideas more persuasive with fancy language features, ask yourself this: what order will I put my points in so that my point of view gets stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and the examiner goes, hey, that's convincing. Remember, they don't have to agree with anything you say. All they have to do is say, that is a really well-structured argument. The evidence that you bring is really well-structured. And structuring an argument brilliantly will get you the top grades, even if you have only average persuasive writing techniques. Now, how can you guarantee that that sequence will be really good? Like this. Every student in the country is going to start with the immediate advantages of whatever the proposition is. Those advantages will be now, this week, over the next few months, or the next year in school. Everyone's going to do that. But a sophisticated student will think, well, if that happens for 10 years, what will society be like in 10 years' time? Not just my experience, not just your experience, but our experience and everyone else's experience in 10 years' time. That will unlock new possibilities for your writing. Well, a few people will do that, but only a tiny little handful will do this unless thousands of people watch this video. So let's hope it's secret. Do not comment, do not subscribe, do not like. Keep this on the down low. Now we go to what will society be like in 30 years' time, when you've got kids, or even, and this might be good or bad, grandkids. You're thinking way into the future. Society is going to change a lot. How will you predict it? Well, you'll think, well, this is what I thought would happen in 10 years, but let's kind of treble that. What will society be like in 30 years? And when you start writing about society and the future, your argument automatically becomes convincing. The argument itself, the sequence, now, 10 years' time, 30 years' time, is a guaranteed way to get you top grades. Now, there is one other thing which I love, and I got a comment on YouTube saying, oh, that's dated now, sir, it has not aged well. But I think it has. It's a comment about Elon Musk. So if you don't know much about Elon Musk, do a Google search, do a ChatGPT search, however you want to do it. Find out the most entertaining and surprising, brilliant and horrifying things about Elon Musk. He is cultural capital. What do I mean by that? I mean, references to what he does will be relevant now, next year, and 10 years, and if he ever does get to Mars, in 30 years. So your examiner will know exactly who you're writing about, and they will know exactly what kind of point you're making, negative or positive, based on what you tell the examiner. Now, you need to link him, something that he's done or known for, to something that you hate in order to discredit it, or something that you support. Other aspects of cultural capital can be anything you would expect an educated reader to know. Any religious reference, no matter what the religion, you could use that. Any political reference to current events, you could expect the examiner to know that. Famous people or famous events in history, you can expect the examiner to know that. Obviously, you don't get any marks for referencing them. You get the marks for using facts about them to back up your point of view or to discredit the opposition. It is so easy to do unless you know nothing. But that's not you. You wouldn't have got to this stage of the video. You've got to this stage of the video because you're going to get a top grade. If you would like to see how I apply Mr. Elon Musk to any question, that's the video coming up next.